he's having now some problems, connection problems, so he will be with us as soon as possible. Well, this time I want to pass the floor to Professor Horishi Kawamura. Professor Kawamura holds a bachelor with honor in Earth Sciences, Physical Geography from Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. He's a Doctor of Natural Sciences in Geology, Paleontology, and Christian Albrecht Universität zu Kiel in Germany. He was a postdoctoral researcher in Institute of Geosciences in Christian Albrecht Universität zu Kiel in Germany, and also a science manager in IODP Management International in Tokyo, Japan. He was also a chapter scientist in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Exchange, chapter number 5, MARUM, in Bremen University in Bremen, Germany. And now he's the director, and also he's a professor and director of the Office of International Academic Support in the Faculty of Science in Hokkaido University in Sapporo, Japan. His fields of specialization are internationalization of higher education, international research collaboration, large-scale international scientific program, interagency coordination, and marine geosciences. Thank you, Dr. Kawamura, for being here, and we are ready for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shall I show the presentation from here? Okay, I will do that. Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor to be in this panel, and many, recent development in risk management, overseas risk management, from my colleagues in Europe. Yes. I'm not the expert for risk management, but yeah. Since last few years, I have to be familiarize myself to, to the overseas risk management. So I will try to present what we are doing in Hokkaido University. As you know, Japan has a lot of natural catastrophe. So risk management is part of our, everyday life. Just a couple of years ago in Hokkaido, we had a big earthquake and causing a death of 43 people, and this whole island of Hokkaido didn't have a power for 3 days. So, and as you know, we have many other big disasters almost every year. So who is responsible for over risk management in our university? Basically, each school, undergraduate school, and each graduate school, they are responsible for the oversee risk management for their students and staff and faculty members. So I'm in the Faculty of Science. I'm responsible for the undergraduate School of Science and this 3 graduate school, basically. So what is how do we manage overseas risk? 3 years ago, we created this overseas risk management manual, and guiding. This is about 35 pages document, and the guiding principle is safety. Safety of the travelers is most important, as everybody thinks that's how it should be. And we also take action to minimize damage and loss of travelers and other relevant parties, including universities. And we act, of course, sincerely and quickly and appropriately in the event of crisis. So what is the magnitude of overseas activity in our university and in the Faculty of Science, which I am in charge? So we have about 423 international business trips by faculty members every year. All university had 4,400. So it's about 10% of university overseas trip. And undergraduate students, they don't travel much. So about 35 students from our School of Science travel to overseas as a exchange student every year, and graduate student about 100. So total of about 550 cases of overseas mobility and risk management every year in our faculties. Yeah, if you think about overseas risk management, there are lots of relevant parties involved, and of course we are not. We don't have any expert on risk management, so we make a contract with the overseas travel insurance company, and of course university and travelers are closely related, but we don't know how to manage all those relevant parties. So we have a contract with the overseas risk management consultant. But this is a key point for our risk management, this overseas risk management consultant. And we have different phases of overseas risk management. Faculty of Science as a responsible entity for risk management. We have a task for all year long, and for travelers, they have a task before a trip and during the trip in case they they encounter a risk emergency. So I will explain each phase briefly. So all year long, we have a contract with overseas risk management consultant, and we are responsible for keeping this contract and also preparation and maintenance of overseas risk management manuals. And overseas risk management consultant, they send us email newsletter on the overseas risk, and also if we request, they have a seminar for faculty and administrative staff. And if we request, they do the simulation-based emergency training for faculty and administrative staff. So for travelers, before a trip, they have to first make this travel request here. And yeah, university, our faculty, they authorize this travel request. And at the same time, we try to give them some overseas risk educations. And when we receive a travel request and authorize, we make contract with overseas travel insurance, which issue an insurance certificate to the travelers. And we also have a separate, we make a contract for individual traveler with the overseas risk management consultant. And they provide the safety confirmation app, which they can install on smartphone. And they also have a local contact telephone numbers. In case of trouble, they can call local this telephone number. And the government, they they have a system, safety information system. So this consultant company will register each traveler to this safety information system, and they provide real-time information to the travelers. So this is a before overseas stay. This is the process before they go. And this is overseas travel safety information system from Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They have a different travel alert level. And if the alert level is high, we don't authorize the travel request. So they can't travel, basically. At this moment, because of Corona, you can't travel almost anywhere. And they have this two system provided by Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If if they go for less than 3 months, they register one system. If more than 3 months, this system. And if you register, you get real-time risk information to their email address. And this is the insurance coverage. We have contract with insurance company. The key point is we have unlimited coverage for medical treatment and rescue cost. So if necessary, we can even hire the airplane to get our student or staff out from their country. And also, the second important thing is liability. We have quite high coverage for the liability in case our student or staff, they cause any damage in another country. And we want to prepare for the worst, second to worst case would be this, but so we want to bring them back somehow alive in one piece. So this is insurance coverage we have. So during the overseas stay, university, we keep contact with travelers through email or the safety confirmation app, which provided by our consultant. And the consultant, overseas consultant, they have a 24-hour, 7 days per week, all year long help desk. So in case of trouble, they can always contact this overseas consultant, this help desk, and get information. And also they could get the medical advice from doctor. And also if they have any psychological crisis, they can also talk to a counselor. So this is in case of emergency, this is the most complicated one, of course. Yeah, traveler at risk, they can inform us through safety confirmation app, or they can call local telephone number, or they can just simply contact us through email. Then, yeah, we will get, we will inform, I mean, overseas consultant, they get information as well. So they will start giving us advice and support to create the emergency response headquarters in our faculty, and tell us what to do, because we don't have any expert. And overseas travel insurance company, they will provide funding as a insurance claim as a funding, so we can conduct a rescue action, or we can pay for the medical fee and those kinds of things. So those are the 4 phases we have and what we do in case of emergency. We didn't do anything special for Corona. We did it inside of our university domestically, but for our overseas students, we didn't have to do so much. We already had everything in place. We just have to act it. So those are the key point for our travel overseas risk management. I think that's all I have for this talk. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Professor Kawamura. Very interesting and specific, and how it's important to have protocols for security of students. Now we will continue with a presentation of Dr. Adam Lipski. Dr. Adam Lipski studied history and political sciences in Braunschweig in Germany. From 2008 to 2012, he worked for the International Office of the Technical University Braunschweig, during which time he was also a guest researcher at Shizuoka University in Shizuoka and Hamamatsu, Japan. Since 2013, he has been coordinating both the European University Partnerships and the European Union programs of higher education at Fachhochschule Frankfurt, with special focus on Erasmus Plus program. He is a member of the Expert Committee European Collaborative Programs of the European Association of International Education and has been selected to serve on the German Service of Academic Exchange Board of Erasmus Plus experts for 5 consecutive years. Since 2018, Adam has worked in the University Internal Security Department, developed the area of travel risks and security of international assignments. As of March 2020, he is Chief Travel Safety Manager at Fachhochschule Frankfurt. Professor Ellis, thank you for attending and proceed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very nice introduction. So yes, that's me. My name is Adam Lipsky from Frankfurt, Germany. And since I'm joining via the cell phone, some staff of Kenya of the University of Guanajuato has to forward my presentation. So if there's any delay, that is why. Without further ado, since we have limited time, I want to talk today to you about our crisis response as an international staff week. That's what I called this presentation. And the reason why I choose to talk about this is because this very much helped us in dealing back in March with the Corona COVID crisis, where we had a global repatriation effort that, you know, I was coordinating, since now I am the Chief Travel Safety Manager, because that was just only due to the coronavirus and I was the only one who did get out of the way fast enough. So there you go. Well, now something happened.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I just got.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So next slide, please. And I'm also very happy, while the slides are changing, to say that the University of Guanajuato always has sent at least 2 people attending the staff week. So they have been the most reliable attendees. So thank you very much, guys. And it's always a pleasure to have you, although you're one of the furthest, you know, in traveling. So that's very great. So this is our invitation, and it was very important for us to, I mean, those of you who are familiar with this staff week format, we usually show a little bit of the university, show a little bit of what your school has to offer. We went to a more like oriented, goal-oriented approach. If we can turn on the next slide, that is. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting cut off. So this is the desired outcomes, which was very important to us to have a focus on what it is that we're doing. What we are doing is we are taking in best practice from outside the field of higher education. We also have partners that present, like Professor Kawamura just did, you know, their best practices, how they make it work at their institutions. However, we put an emphasis on bringing in outside expertise, namely of the German armed forces. We have an old friend of mine. I used to be a member of the German army, who does the preparation work for the soldiers who are deployed abroad. We also work with the German Society for Developmental Cooperation, who are based in Frankfurt, luckily, and they have a top-notch security or staff security branch, which, you know, introduce their system and give us some insight. I mean, needless to say, those are 2 organizations who are very focused on, you know, safety and security abroad, and especially crisis management. But you can learn a lot. You can try to scale it down to see what it is they're doing, and maybe if you can only use 10%, I found that to be very helpful, and so did our participants. What we also do is then we exercise with our participants communication, risk assessment, and decision making. And then the heart of our week is a full day crisis response exercise, where we give the participants a scenario which they have to work on as a team, which is challenging because most of them have never met before in their life. They're from different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages, which poses an interesting challenge, but it's always a lot of fun, and it's a very nice exercise, specifically if you have not ever done anything like that. And then at the end of the week, we give a quick evaluation, a rundown of what went well, what went wrong, and create chunks to take away back home. Next slide, please. Right. So this is the part I was mentioning just now. This is, you can just click all the way through. There are some pictures here. So this is what it looks like, classroom setting. This is a gentleman from this, developmental agency giving a rundown, of what it is they do, how they react in a crisis scenario, and so on and so forth. You see the slides down there, the GIZ, that's the company, or that's the association I was talking about. But we also have, and this is a Dutch school, Windesheim University of Applied Sciences. They gave us an introduction to what it is they're doing in such an event. So this basically marks everything up till the Wednesday when our crisis response takes place. Next slide, please. Right. So this is okay. Right. So this is if you're familiar with first aid responders or the military, for example, this is a very standard role set up in a crisis response team. You have a chief of staff, personnel, the situation chapter, operations, logistics, press and media, and the communication chapter. So this is also how we then distribute roles within the crisis response team of our guests, the participants. Just to give you an overview, if you're familiar with this type of setting, if you're maybe a first responder, or if you've served in the military, for example, I think 90% you're familiar with this type of setting. I'm not going to go into much detail here, just to let you know what it is that we're doing in case you should you recognize this. Next slide, please. Right. So, and this is actually one of the expositions that we give the group. So, obviously we're not using this one because now it is spoiled and you know what's going on basically. So what we have is a fictional country. In this case, it's the country of Haku, which is totally made up. It does not exist, which is interesting because there's always one or two participants who are very hard to persuade that this is actually a fictitious country. We had that couple of times where they believe that well, it's a fun challenge anyways. So this country, in this scenario, there's a military insurgency or an insurgency going on that escalates, and you have four scenarios for the crisis response team. You have an exchange student group that is located within the country, and there's something going on, usually a medical emergency of sorts, or something with local law enforcement. In this case, we went with a chronic disease, and they are stuck because of the borders being shut down, and one of the students is in need of a certain medication that is hard to obtain. So the group has to work on that scenario. That's the blue one. So it's you can see that there. This is the blue scenario. This is going to be important later when we write a timeline for what's going on. There's a second objective here, or second problem. That's a high-ranking visitor group. There's a dean of our school of approximative accuracy. So you can already see it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We're not taking it too seriously, to make sure that people don't get too stressed. But so there's a team on a fact-finding mission, and then four people are there, and then one of the members is robbed, the laptop is stolen, and now the university is being blackmailed. So this is basically the essence of this scenario. It's a blackmail situation. How far are you willing to go? Are you really not negotiating with blackmailers? Or does it depend on how much money they want? Also, where you're going to get the Bitcoin if you choose to, negotiate with them, etc., etc. This is usually very interesting because it's a very plausible scenario. Think of ransomware, things like that. It doesn't have to be in this context, but things like these do happen. The third one is sort of like a media outfall, a media response thing. There's a research group that's stationed in the country, and one of the researchers is actually an advocate for the insurgents, has been on social media. This is being dug up. So how do you deal with the media fallout that is generated from a situation like this? And then the last one is protests that are taking place on the campus. We chose to include that because our groups tend to be very large. We have up to 20 people, which is uncommonly large for a crisis response staff. So in order to, give them something to do very physically, we then have student assistants play protesters, and they're trying to get into the command center. This is usually, something that people do not expect. Okay, next slide, please. Right. So this is something that if you could go back, yeah, exactly. So this is just an example of the things that we hand out to the participants. This is a fake Wikipedia site. Obviously, all of this does not exist. We make everything up. Again, a little tongue-in-cheek. I mean, the anthem of this fake country is "Small unknown Hakuyu are very real." To sort of take a little bit away from the stress, but it gives them a rundown, and it's very, very useful to sort of give them, an idea. Although I think the history of this fake republic is never going to be mentioned again. It's like a certain feel and touch to what it is that they're dealing with. So this is just an example of the things that we hand out to the group. And you'll see a lot of those things like maps and flags throughout the pictures. If we could forward, please. Right, so this is the thick of it. This is our Wednesday. This is what the group looks like. If we can have the picture, I hope this is working because there's a lot of pictures. So this is the group. This is our setup. Hold on a second, not so fast. Let's just leave it right there. So here's our chief of staff. He's from Poland. He was one of our Polish guests and has the boss right next to it. So very important figure, oversees the entire action, and then calls in for meetings and makes sure that all the groups and the roles are working with each other smoothly. If you could show us the next picture. Right, so here you see that's a good example. So there's a map. This is from another drill. This is not the same exercise. So the flags are different, the country's different, but the system is the same. So we have maps everywhere. People can put post-its on them, locate whatever it is that they need to locate. Flags just add a little bit of visibility, a little bit of flavor, makes it easier for the participants to get into the role. And then you can see here in the background, they're calling in a meeting, just a status update to see where everybody is at any given point in time. Next slide, please. Right, so communication obviously is a very important issue. We have two lines of communication. If you can just forward another picture, please. A landline phone and this emergency cell phone. We originally had the idea to, activate the group through this phone. This proved to be a little bit too complicated, but we have two vectors of reaching them, and this is how we communicate with the group, and how I'm going to show you in a little bit. If you can forward the slide. Right, so this is us. Everybody, so it's the slightly chubby gentleman in the back wearing the black vest, it's me, and everybody wearing a black vest is actually one of our team, which we call the counter staff. So this is the group that sits in a separate room, and we simulate the world and give responses to whatever it is that this team who are wearing the yellow and blue vests are doing. The yellow and blue vests are the responders. The gentleman to the left with the beard is our chief of security, Sebastian von Beren. He's also part of the counter staff, but in this case, he's not wearing a vest, meaning he's taking part in the exercise. He's explaining something, so he's now part of whatever is going on. So we can switch out and into the roles or any roles as we please. If you forward one more picture, I think you can see me exactly. So I'm there with some maps, talking to the staff. I provide new information that helps them cover whatever it is that they need to cover. Next slide, please. Right, so this is what the counter staff looks like. This is a separate room, but it's very close to the staff room that you just saw. This is Steph Porter. She's in charge of our outgoing students and also part of in this exercise of the counter staff. So now we're answering emails. We have dedicated email address setting up for this exercise so that they can reach us and we can reply accordingly. Next slide, please. And then this is in the back, you can see a whiteboard where we jot down all the important information. So certain things are set in stone or are set in the plot book, like the things I just saw you in the beginning, you know, the names of the protagonists or what roughly is going on. But a lot of the things you can't really premeditate or think about in the first place. So you make it up as you go. In order to keep some consistency, you have these whiteboards and then you jot down all the information that you're giving out. So we have the student, I don't know if you can read it clearly, his name is Clemens Lawrence. This is how that scenario started. A mom called our office asking if we knew anything about the whereabouts of this student because it was her birthday yesterday. He didn't call. He always calls her for her birthday. And now she's worried that something might have happened because he's abroad. And then this gets the ball rolling, and then our team investigates. And there's certain things that so they're asking for their student ID number, for example, and we don't make this up because it's irrelevant. But you know, in order to simulate a working university environment, then we just make up a number that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we write it down. So whenever a player or a participant asks for that number again, we all have the same information, which is crucial. Um, and then at the end of the exercise, we actually show the players this room so they can see what it is that we're doing. Next slide, please. Right, and this marks the end of the exercise. Is actually not to solve any of these issues because you cannot. This is our vice president for studies, the gentleman with the glasses, and he's being instructed because the fake scenario is he now has to give a press conference where he details the current situation. And this is the important thing. We want at the end of the exercise to have reliable information about all the scenarios at any given or at that point in time, let's say, and the group has to establish this, give it or hand it over to a person who has no knowledge of what has been going on so far, so that he or she, in this case he, can make verified claims about the situation. So this is the goal of the exercise. Roughly lasts from 8:30 till 15 o'clock, and then the whole thing ends and we have a couple of beers. Next slide, please. Right, and some of you may remember this participant. She's from from the partner university in Mexico. What's important is it's a lot of fun. It sounds very serious and it's like a very dramatic subject matter, but actually it's a lot of fun. Also on the next slide, you can see us having a lot of fun while doing it. Like recalling the room and being someone like a lawyer or whatever, and it's a good laugh. And I think the next slide shows, um, right, so this is all the participants, including the counter staff. This is our school. In the back, you can see Frankfurt, and that's pretty much it. Next slide. And then just to wrap it up, this is the Thursday. So, we do a follow-up. We try to evaluate the session, get the participants' feedback, and then also, and this is shown here in the picture on the left, there's Alesia. She's part of our quality assurance team at the university, and she does like a process management sort of seminar. So how can we take what we have learned during the exercise and use it in our processes at our institutions, speaking from the participants' perspective. So there's actually something useful coming out of this that they can take away. Next slide, please. Right, and again, two different participants from Mexico in the picture. I carefully selected those. We also have a cultural program that everybody can enjoy a little taste and side of Frankfurt. And I think we have been pretty successful. If you can just click one slide down, we have, the experiences have been good. People have been happy. We're constantly trying to improve ourselves, but I think we're on the right track. So this just basically should give you an overview. If you click on the next page, I think that's it. Right. What it is that you could do at your institution with this is not very detailed. This you can set up in 2 or 3 days. You can do it internally. You can do it with external partners. It's a very good way to get used to, how to work in a crisis team, in a crisis staff. And it actually did help us in dealing with the COVID crisis. And I'm going to stop now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adam. Very interesting. And it's a good example of how the risk management can be institutionalized, not only at the higher education institution or university, but in relation or in connection with the authorities, government, and other external organisms. Thank you. And now we'll continue with the participation of Dr. Laurent Benet. Dr. Laurent Benet obtained a PhD in peptide and peptide synthesis from the UGInternacional's Master des Industries City of Helsinki in 2000 year. In September 2001, he became chemistry associate professor at the biological engineering department of UPEC Créteil, University Institute of Technology. He has held different posts. He has been vice president for UPEC for international affairs since 2018, acting vice president for UPEC in international affairs, deputy vice president of UPEC for international affairs between 2016 and 2018, head of Créteil Vitry UIT International Affairs Divisions in 2012, head of the Biological Engineering Department of International Affairs Division since 2006, and vice president of the head of Biological Engineering Department. Thank you, Dr. Tevenet, and please, you can proceed with your participation.
Hi, everybody. I have no presentation, but I just want to discuss with you about the risk management in our university. So UPEC, it's one quite huge university in Paris, something like 40,000 students. And each year we have around 2,000 students abroad. We have something like 16 institute faculty, and it's not easy to control all the mobilities. We have, for example, a master degree on humanitarian assistance. So the students have to do an internship in some critical area in the world, like Pakistan, Sudan, Palestinian territories, Syrian countries, to control. And as UPEC is a large university, all the person in charge of each program allowed to sign the internship agreement. So to control is not very easy, and we try to put a system very simple but efficient for all the students. And I will take the example of the COVID crisis. It was we spent hard period in March and April. First of all, the program is to be informed and to give the authorization of a mobility. For the student who apply for a grant for financial support, it's very easy because they contact our office and we have all the information about the student and about his mobility. So there is no problem for the student. The problem is for the student who decide to do the mobility without grant. We create a document, online document for this mobility, but we know that not 100% of students fill this document, and we know that some of the students go abroad without being identified by the central office. So, in the crisis of COVID, we have two parts. First of all, it was a student who wanted to do a mobility. The crisis was a an evolutive crisis. So in January, the crisis start in China, in Asia, and in Europe. We thought that in Europe we will manage to continue the mobility. So the end of January, we decided to contact each week all the faculty in order to obtain a list of students interested by the mobility. So our first work was to give a specific authorization of mobility for each student in Europe, but mobility outside Europe depends on the country. So the first work was this. This work continued until the closure of the university in the middle of March. So we work very strongly with all of the faculty in order to control and to be sure to know all the student in mobility and to give or not the authorization depend on the mobility. The second part of our work and the management of the risk was for the student abroad during the crisis. So we identify our student and the student, the list, we take the list of the official with the central office to contact the student, and we contact all the faculty to take their list in order to compare if we like that can obtain the 100% abroad to be sure to contact all the students. And we contact the student once, twice, 3 times until we obtain an answer of them. Or some of them decided to stay abroad, for example, in Canada, without any problem. Some of them ask us to give an advice to come back or to stay, and we recommend to come back because most of the university closed, and it's difficult after it was difficult to find ticket, etc. So you prefer to ask the student to come back to France. And some of them had a lot of difficulty to find a plane ticket in some country in Europe, Poland, for example, or in Mexico. We had some students in Mexico, and it was difficult to ask to obtain flight ticket for this student to come back to France. So for this problem, we worked with the French Ministry of Higher Education and with the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to help the student to find a ticket in different company, different airline, in order to have some seat. It was very difficult, and I know that the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs worked very hard for the student, but not only, for the tourists abroad, etc. So we finally we managed to make 100% of our students back to France, and it was a success, and we are very happy about that. The second thing is what we will do after. Two things. First of all, a financial problem. We have to treat the financial problem because some students had to buy expensive flight ticket to come back. Some students had to pay apartment for quarantine, and we help them for that. So we put some financial some financial support for that, and we ask all the students, did you have some difficulty to pay a flight ticket, etc. And university decided to help them, and we pay everything for coming back to students with an interruption of mobility. Some of them paid a visa for nothing, or paid some months rent apartment or thing like that. So we help all the students in order to limit the impact of the crisis for our students. And the second thing is to try to have an efficient system for the future. We try to use this crisis in order to create an efficient system. So what we will develop in the next month, in January 2021, it's a new system for mobility. All the students will have to fill a document online. All the students, with or without financial support. And with this document, the international office will give or will not give the authorization of the mobility. And after, we ask all the faculty to limit the signature authorization. And for foreign mobility, we ask all the faculty to limit this signature at just the dean level. So for mobility, for internship agreement, for mission order, for everything, it's compulsory that only the dean sign the document. And the dean will not sign if there is not the previous authorization of the official central office, the international office. So like this, we hope that will limit the possibility of mobility without information. So we work on that. It will take. It's a new informatics system. We need to develop our system and move on forward. And I think that we will be able to implement the system in January 2021. So this is the bilan of the COVID crisis. We managed to help all the students. We hope that we will have a more efficient system to control the mobility for the future crisis. And at the end, all the students abroad during the crisis was able to come back to France. Some of them with some week delay, but at the end, all of them went back to France without too many difficulties. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Telendet. I think how we can promote actions to prevent and to mitigate risk. Now, after your presentation, it's time to open the floor for questions and comments from our attendees. For now, I have one question for all of you. You can answer, every one of you, or all of you. We have one question from the attendee, one of our attendees. Considering the times we are living due to the pandemic and how things have dramatically changed, how do you see the affordability of the insurance student and professors need to obtain before traveling in matters of price and conditions? To what extent the conditions, the pricing of the international insurance will change? Will they be more expensive? For sure. Will they cover everything? Will there will be exceptions of coverage? There will be some zones of the world with no coverage of the insurance. How do you see the future of the international insurance industry?
I can answer just because we discussed about that. I think the price of the insurance will increase. possibility very important. We decided to try to make a study about the different insurance, different possibility, in order to inform the student of the best, the cheaper, the cheapest insurance, but not compulsory to choose that one. But we try to offer the possibility to have a cheapest insurance, but we continue to let compulsory to buy this insurance, and it's more and more important to do that. So we will not sign any authorization without the proof of an international insurance. It was a case before the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and after, it will be more important to have this kind of insurance.
So if I can answer, we are in a sort of like a particular situation in Germany where there's a very rigid legal framework, you know, regarding insurances, especially if we work for a public university as we are. You are not, so our university is not allowed to take out any insurance for their members, be they professors, staff, or students. So they have to do that themselves. What we do is we check whether or not students, for example, have the minimum required insurance that is asked of them. Having said that, that is, in our opinion, in our estimation, not enough to cover anything substantial that may happen to you. So let's say you break an arm while you're abroad. Even within Europe, which has its own sort of insurance agreement, you know, within the European Union, that often, I mean, on paper it's fine, but when you're on site and you're in an emergency where time is of the essence, you don't want to deal with paperwork, or you don't want to deal with regulations of a country that you just been there for 2 months basically. So we relay this to the students and the professors, saying that please make sure, please ask a specialist, which is the second thing that comes into play. We cannot, unless you have a certain certification, you cannot give any official recommendation of any type of insurance in Germany. That is being left to specialists, and you can argue with the pros and cons of this. But we do make sure that we ask them, listen, make sure that you have insurance that, for example, should anything happen to you, should you unfortunately, you know, disease, or if should you die, that your body can be repatriated, because that is usually not covered in the public insurance. So this is a good angle to keep people thinking about what it is that they actually need, and then from then on they have to act themselves. We just check if the minimal requirements are met. Yeah, so, and in regard to the COVID situation, very early on, we spoke with so there's a public accident insurer that does the basic coverage if you travel abroad and you know, are involved in an accident. I'm just going to put it very broadly. And they, I think in February and March already made it very clear that COVID now is being seen as a general life risk. So there's no coverage specifically for that, unless you're a scientist, biomedical researcher researching COVID, and then you contract it, but that's a different case. You know, by and large, this is just now basically up to you. So I think it will affect future mobility, but I think insurance companies have already caught up to the circumstance that we find ourselves in.
Okay. As far as our insurance are concerned, it's covered COVID. So, and the price of our insurance, so far, insurance company hasn't told us that they will raise the price. Yes, as I already explained, we have an unlimited amount for rescue cost and the medical cost. So I think we are very much covered for our students and our faculty members traveling outside of Japan. That's all.
Thank you for your answers. Very interesting. We have another question, and it's related to how do you involve partner institutions when we are talking about bilateral agreements and mobility? How do you involve partner institutions, especially in the prevention when you receive students from abroad, especially the prevention and also the, I would say, the education process of the students, because most of the important points here in risk management is prevention. And prevention is related with education. Yeah, for sure, we need to talk about reaction, for sure, and mitigation, but that's sometimes very late in the process. If we focus on prevention, education, so how do you involve our institutions on educate the students who are traveling to Germany, traveling to China, traveling to France, and how they can prevent risks before traveling? Do you talk to the partners? Do you send them some input information? Do you work with the international officers? How do you work in this specific point?
So what we are doing is that we are preparing everybody who we send abroad more or less in a more or less detailed way. Obviously, people who work for us more so than students who go there on a, let's say, non-funded exchange semester, for example. That being said, within this preparation, we tell the students, or we do a couple of things. First off, we want to enable them to think about the possible hazards that they may encounter themselves and how to mitigate that. And you can use very simple mechanics to do that. For example, tell them to research the emergency number for the country that you're going to, because once a car hits you, you lie in a ditch, your arm is broken, you can't properly use your cell phone, you're not going to be able to Google an ambulance number. So please make sure that you know beforehand and have it saved in your cell phone. Also try to research who or what type of help to expect. If you dial this number and tell the person, I'm injured, I need help, what are they going to be able to send you? How fast is the service available in that country? That might differ heavily, even within Germany, depending on the region. Frankfurt, it's an urban environment, very quick. If you're in the countryside, it may take them a while to get there. And once you know this, it's you're in a much better situation. And we want to involve our partners insofar that there's certain things that we are unable to provide. A classic example would be students coming to Frankfurt. They have no clue what areas to avoid or what areas, might be a little dodgy. And then we step in and we give them a rundown about questions like that. For example, if you have certain problems, you can approach the police. That's not a problem. They're always willing to help you. They will not shake you down. There are some countries out there in the world, where they're out to make money, for example. Not the case in Germany. These areas, please avoid them, or please be careful when moving around in Frankfurt. And so on and so forth, because this is something that a partner institution cannot provide because they lack the service. And then we also prep our students to ask this of their international office, just in a casual way. If there's no orientation or an orientation that doesn't cover this, we tell them, listen, just ask your peers or ask the international office what is okay, what is acceptable. Is it okay to, I don't know, drink alcohol on campus, for example, or in the city, and so on and so forth. So we try to involve them. Having said that, there's no formal way that we do that, so we do not directly yet contact international offices abroad, but it's actually a good idea. I think it's an interesting thought, so we might start doing that.
For our inbound mobility, we have no specific needs. Each faculty and in central office to take care of each of our international students. So there are no lot of important problem with the student. And if a problem occur, we can take care of the student. The problem is more for outbound mobility. So we hope that our partner help us in case of problem. It's usually the case in case of assault, for example, to help the student with the police, with etc. I think the more critical problem, it's psychological problem of student. We can let go abroad student with fragility, with psychology, psychiatric fragility. It's not very easy to know before the mobility. And in this case, students abroad will not go to see the professor or the office in the partner university to say, I have a problem, I need help. And it's more critical to detect this kind of problem, and this kind of problem maybe sometimes important. So the more critical situation we had is this case of student with psychological incident distress in university partner, and we try to make the student go back to France in order to take care of them, because I think it's only one solution in case of very big problem, very big psychological problem. We had this case.
Yeah, in our university, for incoming students, we have orientation and we give them safety information, safety guidance in our orientations. And for outgoing student, we have to rely on for details of the, where they are. We have to rely on our partner university. But for the big scale, we have this safety confirmation app. They keep providing newest information on, in country scale if there's any disaster happen. And as for psychological problems, student or faculty encounters, we have this help desk, 24-hour help desk. They have also specialists. If they ask for specialist support, you can talk to them in Japanese. And for international student, incoming international student, we have a counselor in universities. They are specializing non-Japanese student, so they can talk to them. And it's actually, unfortunately, it happens very, very often that our international students have to go and talk to our counselor. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think it's running out, so we must close the session. On behalf of the University of Guanajuato, I want to show our appreciation to your colleagues' contribution to the University of Guanajuato International Forum. Muchas gracias. It's our pleasure to have you here in the panel. And this is one of the last session of our international forum for this year. We are closing, and I want to share with you some general numbers about the International and Expo of the University of Guanajuato. This time is the first virtual session because of the condition, but we will continue to do it. However, it's the fifth edition of the International Forum. This time we have 12 different countries participating: Germany, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Costa Rica, France, United States, Netherlands, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, and also a Mexican representative from Qatar. We have the participation of 22 partner institutions and 12 international cooperation associations and organisms. Three big conferences, 6 panels, 12 talks, 1 academic meeting with the Health Science Division of Campus Guanajuato in Campus León in León City. And we use different platforms such as WebEx, Facebook, and we have a lot of thousands of participants in all the different platforms. You are invited to participate in the different activities, international activities of University of Guanajuato. We will continue. September is the month of the International Forum, so we'll be in touch with you to invite you the following year, and we will find a good topic to continue international activities. Thank you for your collaboration, your participation, and also thank you for all to attend this interesting panel. Thank you, colleagues. See you soon. Gracias.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Hasta luego.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.